is 9 o'clock. Joe, you want to start? Oh, you already recorded, so here we go. All right. It is 9 o'clock, and just like any good Toastmasters meeting, we are going to start right exactly on time. My name's Andrea Tantillo, and I'm going to be your host for today's Mastering Your Presentation, a stellar approach to completing Pathways Presentation Mastery. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Toastmasters District 56 YouTube channel after the event. First, we want to go over a few rules and protocols. We would love for this to be an interactive session, so feel free to leave your video on, but please mute your microphone until you're ready to talk. And let's keep in mind the TM core values: integrity, respect, service, and excellence throughout the entire meeting. Also, I want to let you know that today's presentation will be available afterwards on the shared Google Drive at D56, and I'll share a link to the chat toward the end of the presentation for you. Now, without further ado from me, well, that's not true. Maybe a little more ado from me, I'm going to introduce our instructor. It's Louis Cioletti. He's an experienced Toastmaster, and he joined Toastmasters in 1999. He served as the Area P3 Director in 2005-2006 and achieved his DTM in June 2007. He was a member of several clubs before becoming a charter member of his home club, Spaced Out Toastmasters, also known as SPOT, and he serves as its current Vice President of Education. Lou's talk this morning will discuss effective public speaking skills, review the presentation mastery plan path projects, and explain the mentor-member support process to align your personal and professional goals to achieve success. Now, with all that said, please help me welcome Louis Cioletti, Distinguished Toastmaster.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much for that glowing introduction. You read everything I wrote down. I appreciate that. That was very, very ornate. Thank you. Well, good morning to everyone and happy pre-Valentine's Day. I hope that your heart is warmed and the temperatures don't get too cold for you to enjoy the holiday that will happen tomorrow. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce our topic, Mastering Your Presentation. And today I am using a space theme, obviously, the stellar approach, because I belong to SPOT. And I'm trying to help you effectively condense your space-time in order to complete this specific path called Presentation Mastery in as rapid and as productive a time as possible. So with that, one more thing, if you have any questions, you could always raise them during the presentation, unmute yourself, or you could send a chat message to Andrea, who can collect these and interrupt me at a certain time if you prefer that route as well. That said, let us start with our presentation. And there we go. Did you know? Why are we talking about presentation mastery? Well, from the March issue of Toastmaster back in 2020, it told us in an article that presentation mastery is the most completed course in Toastmasters, followed by dynamic leadership. So if you want to go read the entire article about what was happening in Pathways a year ago, there it is. And so that's why we decided, and I still think it holds today, that there is a following for presentation mastery. Why? Because presentation mastery is the crux of it is to build public speaking skills. That said, you can see from the catalog sheet on presentation mastery, essentially a grocery list of all the requirements and electives that are part and parcel of the PM path. Given that, we are going to, as Andrea alluded to, we're going to look into a deep dive somewhat into the various levels of presentation mastery. We'll review some of the electives, but we can't really go into them because there's 24 electives, considerable number to choose from. And lastly, I want to bring up a novel team-based approach to enhance your progress towards completion of this specific path of presentation mastery. That said, Why are Toastmasters so interested in presentation mastery? Well, what is presentation mastery? As I've alluded to, I want to edify the purpose of the presentation mastery path, in case you are not already familiar with it. But even if you are, I think we need to have a foundation on which to base this talk on regarding presentation mastery. As I mentioned, the path is to build your skills as a public speaker. And how do they do it? In the context of the actual path itself, it talks about these 3 bulleted points. One is to learn how an audience responds to you regarding your presentation. Next thing is improving your connection with the audience. And there's even an elective that deals with connecting with your audience. So it's interesting that even in presentation mastery, you have this main point in here. And when you get into connecting with your audience, you will learn that there are several elements involved with that, such as demographics, values, beliefs, and prior knowledge. But I digress. That's part of the connection with your audience. That's part and parcel of presentation mastery. And last but not least, understanding effective public speaking techniques. And we've seen techniques that work and some that perhaps do not, which brings me to this next slide. Let's have a short examination of what those presentation mastery skills might be, starting with a trained speaking voice. Well, trained speaking voice, you should have a voice that's audible, articulate, and appropriate for the occasion, using active voice and words in your speech to engender the audience to listen and focus on the message you're trying to bring them. Nothing succeeds like success, and that success is confidence in your ability to communicate, inspire people with your message. And how do you do that? Well, you have a very firm posture, your movement, your eye contact, the gestures. You adopt a conversational tone with your audience such that they feel like you are talking directly with them. And of course, some humor doesn't help. Puns are allowed as well, by the way. That's my livelihood. Next thing, you want to have effective use of visuals. And you should understand how to use the software products, whether it's a PowerPoint, God forbid it's a PowerPoint. I am enamored a little bit with Prezi, and I haven't used it enough to be comfortable with it, but I think I love that presentation software. But the effective use of visuals, guess what? It's not just the presentation. It is you. You are a visual. And so you have to be presentable. I even decided on a Saturday to wear a tie. That's, I'm trying to add some, formality to the occasion. So you are a visual as well. The main purpose and objectives, clearly, what does the audience need to know? What is it that you need to inform, instruct, convince, stimulate, activate, entertain? What is it that they are asking you to do for them? And unless you really, your main focus and the objectives of your presentation line up with the needs of the audience, it's not going to have that kind of connection that we were talking about having in the presentation mastery lineup of purpose. Hopefully you have a superb knowledge of your subject matter. Clearly, what happens here is that unless you read up on the subject, because you don't want to fumble around for questions later on about something that you only know what's in your presentation slide, that's not going to work with your audience. So you have to get your subject matter into you, get what you know into your slides, and get what's on your slides or your presentation material into your audience. So it's a connect the dots type of presentation that you have to do. All right, that said, let's move on to a strong organizational development and transition. Your introduction is an important part of your presentation. It's audience validation. So when we talk about the 3 parts of your presentation, the introduction of your speech or project, the body, and the conclusion, we often forget about the 4th one. Matter of fact, it was in a Toastmasters magazine that talked about this very thing. It's your introduction is part of your organization of your speech, because it's the speaker validation part of your presentation to your audience. That's why they're listening to you. That's why you were invited there. That's why they're interested in hearing what you have to say, because of who you are. So make sure that introduction really validates you to your audience. And of course, you want to have those strong transition among the points from your introduction to your body and the main points in your body of your presentation to the conclusion, and the introduction and conclusion match. And last but not least, our verbal, nonverbal communication skills, right? Are you enunciating the words? Are you pronouncing the words correctly? Do you use good grammar skills in the sentence structure? Are there imaginative stories that involve the audience? Are you asking for feedback, soliciting feedback from the audience? All these verbal applied skills, and the nonverbal, as we've already mentioned, about gestures, a conversational tone, to them looking at the audience for signs, and using pauses when they are appropriate. Gives time for the audience to reflect, take in a point, maybe consider some thoughts they had or questions that they like to ask. I'd like to stop at this point and ask the audience, are there any other points that leap out at you that may not be here, or I might not have discussed them, that you would like to share with us?
I can't think of any, Louis.
Okay, well, I just wanted to certainly put that out there and give it some thought. I didn't mean to be so replete in my coverage of presentation mastery skills, but okay.
But feel free to put answer in the chat if you want to. I know Lou was very comprehensive, but I bet you can think of something now that you know that we want to hear from you. So go ahead and put it in the chat.
Very good. While that's happening, I will move on to the next slide. And this is the presentation mastery. This is getting into the context of my talk today. PM, I'm going to abbreviate this now. Presentation mastery concerns 10 required projects. And out of the 24 elective projects you have, only four need to be done to get all 5 levels of competency completed. So how do you take a stellar journey on your PM path? Well, the VPE is obviously very important in any club, and the VPE has several things they can do. They have their own managed data sheets, and I know Maria Pollard has a very good one over, and Boeing does too, with Sean, blocking out his last name, but Sean has one at Boeing Club, but many VPs have data sheets that they track individual progress of their members, and that's fine. They need to do it. We know that's a given. There's nothing new there. But what I like is, and I'll show you this in a moment, is the Pathways Level Completion Checklist. I love this tool, and I like to use it in club I'm in as well. And last but not least, the VP can go down and look at TI and the Pathways reports that are available. I'll just show you a couple slides on that, just to familiarize yourself with them so you know that they're there, and hopefully you can use them. But more importantly, assigning a mentor or mentors to work closely with the member. This is the team-based approach that I'm talking about, the team being the VP, the member, and the mentor. The mentor is almost like, I hate to use Weight Watchers as an example, but they use that team support thing that, yeah, you can lose the weight, you can do it. But the point I'm making here is we can do it as well. But often our members are on their own, especially as they progress down the path of what they're doing. And we don't know if they're really benefiting or they're doing it as quickly as they could if a mentor was there to consistently help them along the way. So with that is a vital crux of what I'm mentioning today. And lastly, and to encourage the member to present a project once a month. Guess what? That might be like a New Year's Eve goal, a New Year's goal. I'm going to do this, and and it falls by the wayside. But if a mentor's there to help them, not to control them, but to help them along their path, they're more likely to succeed because there's someone to help them. And the VP or the mentor could help some of these projects be delivered outside the club so that they're not losing any time. If they have a speech or a project that they need to complete, yay, verily can be done outside the club. And the mentor, mentee can make this work more effectively. Let's move to the next slide. This is the presentation level completion checklist. Now, you're going to say, well, gee, it's one page. And that's what I like about this. It's not specific in terms of what path you're on, because guess what? Matter of fact, Joe Ido was telling me this is also available at the District 56 resources page. You can go into their resources page and find project specific completion checklists. And I thought about posting this in the presentation for PM because we're doing a PM presentation mastery thing. But I decided I like this form better because it's a one-page thing and it allows the member to always have this and the VP to have this and the mentor to have this. And it's just easier to manage, I feel. The PM specific checklist has all of the 24 electives available on that sheet. Now it's good because guess what? They're not going to do but 4 of them. So you have like multiple pages and it's more to keep track of. This is a one page and everything's there. You just annotate on the page specifically what the speech is, and you have the date and the VP initials it when it's completed, when it's submitted. And so everything's on one page. I love this. But it ends up being what is the member more familiar with, more comfortable using. So that's one tool that I like to use in Spot. So let's talk about the TI reports. As you can see here, the base camp managers, and you might say, well, who are base camp managers? Obviously, everyone knows it's the president, the VP, and the secretary base camp managers. They can always go in there and check the progress, as the VP is more inclined to do than any of them on member progress. But that being said, the member can also go in and under reports and the drop-down list, you could see, I believe, standard, custom, and dashboard reports. Now, the dashboard offers a nice overview of the individual progress, level of completion. You can read off to the left over here, all the different views that are available to the member on their progress. And I'm just curious, has anyone been able to look at these reports? Are they being used? Does anyone know they're there, or have they used them? Does anyone, if anyone has used them, would you mind sharing your experience with them?
I've used them. I
Oh.
think they're pretty handy to as a member, just to see my progress. But when I was club president, I could actually get a feel for who else had completed their paths, at least who had completed them in pathways. So you could see that there were some members who were farther along than I thought they were. They just hadn't been doing any speeches when I happened to be around. So I think that's a really handy tool.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, if you're using the checklist, thank you, Andrea. If you are using the checklist, the individual pretty much knows what they are. But if they're not using a checklist and they're just throwing things into a loose leaf, it's kind of hard to have a running account of your progress. And that's why I think the organization of this with the mentor, the VP, and the mentee, the member, doing this, plus knowing what's in pathways, because you might say on your checklist, I have done this, but guess what? Pathways hasn't been updated. So what gives? Where? And that's where you need to bring this up with your VPE. Make sure that you're getting the credit you richly deserve for the completions you have done along your path. And speaking about path, let's run right down quickly through the various levels of presentation mastery. Mastering fundamentals. And once again, this is to notify everyone that you might already be familiar with level 1 across the board. They're usually pretty much the same, because in presentation mastery, you are required to complete all 3 of the different projects you see before you, from icebreaker, evaluation, feedback, both the initial and final speeches there. So you have 2 speeches that are essentially the same, but improve upon one another, and researching and presenting. Starting off with a mentor initially gets you accustomed, gets that relationship started, allows you to be assisted through the experience and knowledge of a Toastmaster who's been through the program. And if you're lucky enough to get a mentor, who is experienced in terms of having a DTM, or has been through at least a full set of paths of levels to get through a full path, then I think you are richly served by that type of mentor. Too often we have club members who are basically on a peer level. They are kind of one helping the other. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what Toastmasters is all about. We're here to help one another. But if you have someone who's been through the program at DTM, or been through the traditional advanced components, then that helps, at least from that perspective, give the mentee the assistance they need to get through these initial foundational mastering fundamentals of level 1. And clearly the actions are to update the checklist. You want to be able to submit the member for completion. All these actions run about the same in terms of going through pathways in Club Central. In level 2, now you're getting into the style that you prefer in this presentation mastery path. Once again, there are no electives. There are only 3 required projects, and that is understanding your communication style, effective body language. You can see the nonverbal types of communication asserting themselves. And then luckily we get into mentoring early, because that's what it's all about. Toastmasters recognize mentoring early on and want you to give and serve just like you are being helped by a mentor here on your level 2 requirements. And it's important, once again, to develop those verbal, nonverbal techniques before you deliver these level 2 speeches. And you're saying, how do I do that before? That's what the mentor's there to help you, to coach you, to get you to develop them, so that when you're giving your level 2 speeches on your style, they've already been honed. It's not the first time, in other words, is not when you gave it to your club. And once again, the actions are the same, only you're completing that level 2 completion through Toastmasters and getting the reward you need for that in Pathways and Club Central. Let's look at level 3, increasing your knowledge. This is only one project on this level, and that's persuasive speaking. Once again, a mentor is invaluable in this part, because here's where you hone developing a strong point of view in your speech. And if there's any weaknesses, you're getting the benefit of your mentor helping you really hone that point of view for your speech. And with that, now you're not only looking at completing that 5 to 7 minute speech, but you also have 2 electives to select from. And what better thing than have a mentor who can help you develop those speaking goals and preferences. And by the way, here's a list of those 12 electives, just so everyone's familiar with what they are. Anything from social speeches down to active listening. I want to call your attention to this asterisk up here in terms of another mentor may be assigned depending on the electives. This is the VPE may be saying, not mandating, because by now you may have established a relationship with your mentor. And if you want to stay with that person, that's fine. But there is somebody in the club who is very adept at preparing for an interview, say you were interested in doing that elective, one of your members in the club happens to be an HR manager, has many, many years of experience, maybe with the interview of personnel coming to work for them. Maybe this is the time to ask the VP to ask that member to be a mentor for you if you are interested in doing an interview project. I think everyone could see the benefits of not just saying, once a mentor is assigned, the VP is all done with it, and off we go. We don't have to worry about that person being taken care of. It's knowing what the person, so the VP and the mentor have to have a very good communication style so they can understand where the member is going to help them find the appropriate mentor. And I'm sure the mentor then can go on to mentor somebody else on some other project. It's not like we're firing people. Okay, well, enough about level 3, and the actions speak for themselves, as we've already talked about. Let's go to level 4. This project is phenomenal. Managing a difficult audience. Here's where the mentor and the VP work together to assign roles to members in the club such that the member who's presenting a 5 to 7 minute speech to their club will be interrupted by various members for whatever role they are given to do that. Hence, that's why the project requires maybe a 15, it could be longer even, up to 15 minutes, because your 5 to 7 minute speech will be interrupted to see how you manage a difficult audience. Talk about, well, what's the chances of that happening? Well, in case you want to go into politics, you probably want to really pay attention to this topic, but it's always good to have those skills. The last thing you want to do is get into a shouting match with the audience. Then for sure you've lost, there's no connection whatsoever. So you want to maintain that connection. How do you do it? Well, you take this project very seriously. And with the help of a mentor, I think you can. That said, let's move on to the next page, because out of the 7 electives, you have one that you must select. And here's the 7 electives right here from the podcast. Matter of fact, the first 4 look like they are more social electronic media. For instance, if I were mentoring somebody in Spot and they had a project, they wanted to write a compelling blog, I don't think I would be the appropriate mentor. You know who would be? Andrea. Andrea would be a great mentor. Matter of fact, any of these, managing online meetings, social media presence, podcast too. I think Andrea Tantillo has phenomenal skills in this area. I would recommend to the VP. I would talk to myself and say, hey, I think you ought to have Andrea as a mentor on this. And if they agree, then that's what I'm getting at, is tailoring the mentor to what the type of elective that would best serve the member to help them. And clearly, the last one with managing projects successfully. If someone in the club is a project manager, wow, perfect. You have this worked out for you already. So keep those items in mind. And finally, we get to level 5, and that's demonstrating the expertise. And this is where it's interesting in the fact you have considerably long-timed speeches. The first one, 18 to 22 minutes. So with these longer speaking times, it is obviously very difficult sometimes in 1-hour clubs to do these. It's not impossible, but it is sometimes very difficult for clubs to handle this type of speech in the club and have a full program, unless the whole program is devoted to that, which we've done that too. I mean, in my other clubs, we've done speeches that were long like that in the Neo program. But the point is here, you can look for an out of club venue either in a different club, for instance, like Spot and Dot, they're evening advanced clubs, and they can handle any number of speeches and any time speeches that you want to deliver. And to speak professionally, you could even find a non-Toastmaster event as long as you have someone there to evaluate you as well. So there are these options, and the mentor and the VPE can help that member select an appropriate venue for these speeches to be done. Okay, let's look at the one of the 5 electives that you have to select and to complete your level 5. Once again, it's anything from lessons learned, and these take considerable time. Matter of fact, one member in Spot just recently completed her level 5 elective, and it was moderating a panel discussion, which she had in club for about 20 minutes. So it took time for her to do this, but we had the time. We could devote as much time. We had a full program, went from her moderating a panel discussion to a full set of table topics to an evaluation, and we had a great meeting. So clearly all of these are meant, especially high performance leadership. I think many of us understand the ramifications of what's involved with the high performance leadership project. So once all of these are done, once they are completed, you are finished with presentation mastery. And I submit to you that with the help of the VP, with the mentor, with the member working closely together to find out the needs and desires of that member, we can get this done in quick order. My last 2 slides, I want to take you down the first step of your PM path. So as I submit to you that presentation mastery with this process can be completed in 12 months or less. Even though you have, what did I mention, at least 14 projects to do, yeah, you can do this with the club's meeting weekly or even monthly. You can be done in-house or outhouse, if I might use that. The whole point of this is that you can find a venue. There's any number of clubs who welcome speakers in to speak, but I think the critical element is you are not there to just check a box. You are there to build a skill. The point I'm making here is that you want that mentor to give you the value of their experience, whether you're hopefully using a DTM to help you. If you're lucky enough to get one, that's superb, but it doesn't have to be a DTM, but anyone who's advanced to give you that perspective. Look at the advanced clubs. I mentioned Dining Out, and of course Spaced Out are both advanced clubs, but there's others, Talking to Town, Pathway Professional Speakers, or just find a local club. It doesn't have to be an advanced club, but certainly advanced clubs and their venues being longer than 1 hour can obviously accommodate any number of speakers. So find clubs that are not just limited to 1 hour, where longer speeches or electives can be accommodated. And you have the benefit of a mentor, and some of these advanced clubs have more DTMs in there whose feedback will be phenomenal to you, just phenomenal. My last slide is basically, Spot is here to support you. Guess what? We welcome members who will come to our club and deliver a speech, and we welcome anyone. Matter of fact, we have a meeting every second Saturday of the month. Spot meets. We have a meeting this evening starting at 7 p.m. Yeah. And we have a guest speaker, Mr. Kent Biggs, who is the area director of R62, and he's coming to talk to us about his book of dreams. He is giving us a 15-minute speech, and then there's going to be a question and answer session about 5, or depending on how many minutes he needs, 5, 10 minutes, doesn't matter. And so we are having him do a level 4 project speech to us this evening. Looking forward, it's going to be phenomenal. He is also talking about his love of astronomy in his book of dreams. So why he got into it, I don't know Kent that well, but it's going to be a great speech. I know him. And as an advanced club, as I mentioned, we're inviting guests who will provide, we are going to provide mentor support if anyone comes to us with their pathway speech or project. It doesn't have to be PM. we can help you because we've been down the road before in our DTM traditional mostly process. So clearly we can help anyone who comes to us, and we are offering mentor services to fellow Toastmasters. Just got to let us know about that. And I've already talked about we're meet Saturday evenings, and it's every second Saturday. And that's my contact information in terms of who I am and my email address, or you can go to the spot link, and that's where spacedOutToastmastersClub.org is available, and you can see our agendas and meetings and times and locations. Well, we're meeting virtually now because of situation, we do not have the need to or want to meet until this COVID thing is really remarkably better off. So, ladies and gentlemen, Spot will support you in presentation mastery specifically because that's where our focus is this year, because that's where most Toastmasters are focused with, and we feel like this would help the most members if we helped you in our mentorship services. So stop dragging your feet. Let us help you proceed on your presentation mastery path. Good luck and Godspeed. Thank you.
So I always tell people when I'm at work that Zoom minutes are not the same as regular minutes. So this hour presentation has ended in 36 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, now would be a great time to turn on your mics and go ahead and let us know if you have any questions. I'm going to put some resources in the chat, as well as a link to where you can find this presentation and a link to a survey that we really appreciate your feedback on. So you go ahead, and I'm going to start posting some links in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Lou, is this presentation going to be made available to everyone?
It is indeed. It is supposed to be made available at the Google Share site with District 56. Is there a link to that site made available, or?
Just put that in the chat. If anybody wants to click on that, it'll take them right to that presentation.
Perfect.
No one has any questions for Lou?
Looks like
Lou,
I adopted a scorched earth policy with my presentation.
Awesome.
I thought you did an excellent job.
And it's early in the morning, and Lou's contact information is right there in the presentation, and I'll pop it in the chat one more time. If you think of a question later, go ahead and give Lou an email, and I know he'd be happy to answer you.
Lou, you pretty much covered everything in very detailed. I think, you summed it up really, really nice. No wonder no one has any questions. I think, this is awesome. This is really, really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm more concerned with making sure that we avail ourselves as mentors to any club member, and we're just doing this because we feel like we enjoy the freshness of having speeches done at Spot, like with Kent, and we've had Kat Clemens come and speak to us. We've had Dorothy Jenkins. I mean, we've had a number of other wonderful Toastmasters benefit us by their presence, and I think we help them by providing cognitive feedback in regards to the presentations they give. But I think if we were to do this outside the club in a mentorship role to avail those services, it's not who comes in and brings us their product of a speech, but what have we done to help them before they get to make that formal presentation, whether it's at Spot or it's in any club for that matter. We're willing to sit down and meet with those members and help them hone their skills. I mean, that's, in a nutshell, that's it.
Yeah.
Lou, I definitely, oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that just like Chandra said, I mean, you went through it, quite easy to understand. I mean, if one is familiar, I'm actually in the PM path right now. I'm able to relate to everything that you said. I just completed, I'm in my part 2 of the DTM program in Pathways. I'm just starting my level 3, even though I've kind of tiptoed through future levels because of the nature of the program that I'm into. So I really appreciate what you said. You covered it from my standpoint. I'm one of those few people who have not been using I think you went online and you said, okay, who have used this? I have actually not used it because somebody shared with me a workbook sometimes ago that have been very useful for me. It's an Excel workbook, which details out the path, the topics, the club that you presented it at and stuff like that. So at any point in time, if anybody wants to audit me, I've got a workbook that I can send to them. I don't need to answer any question. I just send it to them. And it's usually, they come back with, yeah, that's right, we remember all that. So very good. But again, I will give it to you on the final note that I think you did an excellent job sharing with us what some of us already know, and then also giving us a few new tips that would enhance our success as we continue in our journey. So thank you. Very well done, Louis.
Thank you, Aiken. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback.
Lou, one comment that you made that it really hits home with me is it's not about checking a box. And what I love about Pathways is that if you work the plan and do exactly what is expected and actually treat it like a true project, that's where you grow tremendously. And I really appreciate that fact that it's not about checking a box. We could all check boxes, but what did you learn? So thank you for that presentation, Lou. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
I think we do have a comment in the chat from Brent. He said he's working on his level 5 in EC. I don't know what those letters are. And MS, I don't know what that letter is either. And he said that he should be done by 2021 and June 30th, 2021. I think it might be interesting just to see. Yeah, right. Thank you for applauding that, Joe. That's way to go, Brent. I think it'd be interesting to know how are we all doing on our paths? Are we moving along? I've got one more. I need to reflect on my path and my innovative planning, and I'll be done with that. And I'm about to level 4 on engaging humor, and I have registered for a presentation mastery, but I haven't started it yet. So that's where I am.
I think EC is effective coaching and MS is motivational strategies. Just guessing. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, I guess right. I guess I could read. Wow.
Yeah, I just hammered that in there. Sorry for the insider acronyms. So
quite all right. Yeah,
it's the engineer in me. So
also we're insiders, and I should have done those acronyms. So my bad.
So what else? Any other questions or the survey? I know the survey is available too.
yeah, I did the survey. I ranked you pretty much 5 by 5 and all that.
Well, I'm a pretty rank guy. I'm just. Well, I thank you very, very much. Appreciate your help on that.
You're welcome, Louis.
Thank you very much.
So I think Joe must have said something on this before. Maybe it was Andrea. So does District 56 do this every Saturday or every month? Or what's the frequency? Is there a frequency to this?
I guess I'll take that one, Luke. So we do online leadership electives. We started it this year. Unfortunately, we hadn't had the response that we anticipated. We have several in the pipeline. We're going to have another one this month on navigating the new District 56 website. Zinnia Ship is on the line. She just talked about which one she's going to be presenting, and I'll let her go into detail. And we have a couple in April. This is an open forum. If you're interested in presenting, send me an email and I will send you the form and we could discuss it more. Z, you want to talk about which ones you are going to be presenting?
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you. I haven't set up the dates as yet, but I'm working on a presentation related to planning your pathways to distinguished Toastmasters. We know that if you don't plan it, it doesn't get accomplished. So my plan is to help members work out a schedule of when they plan to achieve different levels. That's going to be a hands-on presentation. The other one is Free Toast House Level 3, which has been requested, and that one will be conducted in April. So those are the two projects that I'm working on at this time. I am actually going to be rolling out or practicing the path, scheduling your path to DTM with my Pearland Toastmasters Club on Wednesday morning, just as a rehearsal to see if I'm missing anything or if I should include anything else. And then I will roll it out to the division and then also to all of the members in District 56 under the online electives leadership program. So those are my initial plans right now. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Z. And if anyone on the call is interested in presenting, please let me know. We are open to great presentations, and we have very talented members in our district. And I'm so proud of each and every one of our members that step up and do these presentations to help mentor members in our district. So thank you so much, Lou. Z, I know you've done many. Z did Free Toast Toast 1, 2. I think she did them two times a month for 3 months or so. So thank you for all that. Free Toast Toast is a popular subject for District 56. But we are looking for any ideas that you may have to offer our members.
Hey, Joe, Brent mentioned some, I'm going to turn my camera on because that's the right thing to do. So Brent mentioned in the chat that, do you get to present and get to learn that skill and practice that skill? You can get Pathways credit for presenting in this forum too. So it's not checking a box, it's actually learning that skill, but getting that associated credit. I know Lou is getting credit for this today, which wasn't his primary goal, but he definitely gets that. So just wanted to add that on so you can add that as a path too.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Andrea. I was just gonna say exactly the same thing that Brent just posted. For me, I think messaging is very important. And I actually did announce at the Southwest Project Management Toastmasters Club at Sugarland this past Wednesday. And I'm actually very disappointed right now that nobody from that club, other than our area director, is on this, is in this session today. It's very important. We need to look at, okay, key presentations like this. Many people actually need it and they are not here. So how do we get the message across to them so that they actually understand the value of this? And I like what Joe, I believe, said earlier. Many people are in Toastmasters Club, they probably don't actually understand why they are here. If you really understand, you have a clear goal in mind. You know exactly where you were, where you are, and where you are going, and how the Toastmasters Club membership will get you there. I think people will appreciate it more. And then again, I believe once we begin scheduling these key sessions and we understand the purpose of organizing the sessions, I think it behooves us as leaders in our respective clubs to communicate that. In fact, during the meeting on Wednesday night, I did not just tell them about this session. I actually went online to toastmastershouston.com/calendar. I copied and pasted that in the chat, and I expected, many people said thank you, but I'm very disappointed that no one is here this morning. But again, I understand that it was probably too close to today for many people. But if we know well ahead of time, which I did know because I registered actually before today, and we can pass that message on to our members, I think that would be very helpful. So in closing, what I really like us to remember is, as Joe said earlier, do you have any idea as to how we can make this forum probably more known so that we can improve participation and stuff like that? So if you have ideas around that, I'd really love to hear it, because I can bring those ideas to my clubs at Chenier, at Toastmasters Club, as well as Southwest Project Management Toastmasters Club. So back to you, Joe or Andrea.
May I thank you for that.
Joe, may I speak? I am that area director that Akin mentioned. And I do send all of this information to club presidents, and I ask them to share with the group, with the club. I don't know if that's being done or not. I trust that it is. I don't know how Akin found out, if it was through the president, but I am following what Chandra said. Send them emails, not on Monday, but every day, except Mondays. Send them an email, inform them of what's going on in the district. I do that.
And thanks, Luz. For me, how I got to know this, I go to toastmastershouston.com every now and then. I have a schedule on my calendar. Let me just check in there to see what's new. So I do that all the time. I did not get any email from anybody, but I do that from time to time. I used to get a text message from someone. I don't know whether it was Katie or Kathy, sorry, or somebody else. I used to get a text message just as a reminder for me, but I have not been getting those text messages, but I've just taken it upon myself. Maybe once every other day, I'll drop by toastmastershouston.com to see if there's anything new. And that's really how I got to know about this.
Yeah, I think, we only have 7 minutes. So let me address your question, right? Isn't that nice? We send email and everybody subscribes and joins, right? That's not going to happen. Okay, that's never going to happen. If it is that straightforward, we would have been in a much better place. So the reason for the leadership is that, how do you get people join these kind of trainings? And where we start from here. Whoever attended today, if you find this useful, spread this, the word of mouth. That's more powerful than just sending emails or things like that. We do everything. Joe does everything, sending out emails, but even people do not open emails. It's okay. I'm not blaming anyone. It's their priorities, right? They have to feel it's valued. But how do we do it? It starts from us, okay? So one step at a time, and it's a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. I know Luz, today's presentation is awesome. It's unfortunate that not many people are able to be here, but if they know it's going to be like this, there'll be more people. We just have to spread it out. It starts with us.
The other point is, if they know that it's going to be available on YouTube, then they don't necessarily have to attend today. They can watch it at their leisure. So perhaps that's one way that our members are taking advantage of these trainings that are being offered.
Great point, Z. And Luz, thank you for your service. I know you do spread the word, and I appreciate how positive you are with all your members and all the clubs. Thank you so much for what you do. I appreciate everyone's feedback today. You guys are rocking it. Lou, excellent presentation. Thank you again. There
Thank
is
you,
a
Joe.
question in chat. Can we track the views on YouTube? And yes, we can. Are there any other questions? Lou, you have a closing statement for us? Inspirational?
Yeah, keep watching the skies. No, wait a minute. That was from the thing. Wait a minute. Okay. Well, no, I love the best part of this for me was hearing everyone share their thoughts on how to make things better. And we're an organization that's driven to do that. It's been kind of rough switching to pathways. You know, the transition always takes time to meld with everyone in the organization. And even then we had a transition from the traditional program to pathways that allowed people to delay start. And now we're slowly getting more and more people over, and that's going to take time. And then of course we have the lockdown because of the situation that exists right now. So it's difficult, and people aren't in a very happy place just now, but this too shall improve. We'll just, if we're not frozen to death over the week, I think there's light and heat on the other side. So let's just be patient with one another. Let's just try and make things better, as we have heard many good suggestions here. And Joe and in the trio at District 56 are trying to do their best to make District 56 the best. And I'm just grateful for this opportunity to share what we're trying to do, at least at the spot, to improve people and their path of life. You know, and it's not just a Toastmasters path, it's a path of life. And I think that all of us will be better off for it if we just adopt that kind of view. And I thank everyone for being here today. I am blessed to be in your company. Thank you, Joe.
As the meeting host, I get to close the meeting. Joe just sent me a private message and told me to get to it, so I'm going to get to that. I want to remind you that we have youth leadership and Gavel Club training. It starts at 11. You can visit the District 56 website to register for that if you haven't already. You know, switching to pathways wasn't nearly as hard as switching to virtual, I think. So we were already ready to do that. I think I would be remiss if I didn't invite you one more time to visit Spaced Out Toastmasters. We meet tonight at 7. So if you haven't had enough Toastmasters after this and after the Gavel Club training, hang on and just come over at 7 tonight. I'll post that in the chat. And with that, I think we don't have anything else.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
We got plenty to eat.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye, Brent.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Lou, again. Bye-bye.
Bye.